a croeso gynnes iawn i'r Bwrdd Addysg a Gwella Iechyd Cymru. Good morning, welcome everybody to today's board meeting. As a matter of welcoming, I'd like to welcome Dawn Jones, independent member, and this is her first board meeting. So very welcome, Dawn. Also Meltem Arakan, Osh Geldin. Croeso gynnes iawn. You're very welcome. Melton's joining us as part of a scheme which is for independent members to shadow and to learn the trade. So you're very welcome, and we look forward to your inputs going forward, Melton.
Thank you very much, dear Mawrth.
So now we've also got Rachel Mooney here, Head of Work-Based Learning. We will have various people coming in from the teams. So Angie Oliver a little later and Lee Butler around the dental workforce transformation. And also Dorothy Edwards to talk about the cancer workforce plan. So without further ado, I haven't had any apologies for absence. I confirm that the declarations of interest are current and published for all independent members. Are there any interests to be declared today that are not on that register that need to be declared for this agenda? No, thank you very much. So I'm going to ask that Rachel presents to us. It's called An Improvement Story, and it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Chris. So thank you for this opportunity. It's always really nice to come and share some excellent news with the exec and the board. Thank you. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to explain to you a little bit about our CARBA, which are our assessor and our IQA quality assurance processes and the developments we've been putting in place. So next slide, please. So just a little bit of background. So we have one employed dedicated tutor within our team who looks after all of the training for all of our assessors and IQAs. And we have two qualifications, both of which are with Agored Cymru. We deliver the level 3 certificate and level 4 award. And what we do is we support our staff in the NHS to achieve these. And so by doing so, we're enabling them to understand how the education part of the delivery and assessment works within that education programme. Next slide, please. So the purpose of us setting this up was to enable us to have a sort of a blended approach to teaching, enabling delivery, but most of all, for both our clinical and our non-clinical staff to understand how education works, to embed that within the systems so that we can do in-house as well as supported by our education providers. The resources that we've developed to support this are online, so they're accessible all of the time, and there's a range of those. So the training materials, there's some animations, and there's a governance and toolkit that we've designed so that people can access and utilise if they want to utilise that. The other thing that we've done, the most important bit of this, is that we've designed and we've set up a network for these people. So it's not about training them and leaving them, it's about training them and supporting them. So we continue that support. They've got somewhere to go. We will talk to them about it. They can talk to their peers, etc. So that's the point. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about the benefits and the outcomes of this. It does ensure that we've got all of our staff thinking and working in the same way, so a bit of a standardised approach. It's certainly building capacity so that we can do our grow your own approaches, and that those staff feel a little bit more confident to act as mentors and to support both the staff in their processes and being part of the education partnerships that we have, and as well from FE and HE. It obviously supports the learners in terms of recognising their own abilities and allowing them to have CPD and to continue their growth as well within their roles, etc. And again, it's that dedicated support. It's about allowing us to go out and support them directly, so they actually really appreciate us going out and being directly communicating with them. So we are able to do that through Michaela and her role. We also do this because we have that internal road, they're able to access that training for free. So we put that on and then they can come to us whenever they want. And just as a little bit of an example, we supported some of the clinical induction team in Cardiff and Vale to look at how they're doing their assessment. So even these people, sometimes they are already trained, they've been doing it a while. We went in and we looked at an all Wales approach to changing the assessment, changing it to a more holistic approach, etc. And they've seen an improvement in their submission rates for certification from 20 to 80%, which has been brilliant for us. It's been immense in terms of how we're supporting the teams, etc. Next slide, please. So then the impact of this is the most important bit, really, and I think it's been really positive so far in that we've got this Wales-wide peer network now, so people who wouldn't have necessarily talked to each other doing the same sorts of roles are able to communicate with us and with each other. We've sort of streamlined deliveries, people understand what they've got to do, they can start, they've got that confidence to be able to do it. We share it across Wales, we've got a standardised approach. And it means that when we look at accredited programmes, potentially, if we haven't got our education partners that can support that, we can do that from a centralised perspective here. And in terms of the best practice, I think this is really key in that sometimes people don't have the confidence to be able to deliver or to start from a point, etc. So what we do is we encourage them to create resources, but then maybe to share those so that people can feed back with them and to integrate that. So it gives us that sort of open pathway, those progression routes, but then learners know that they've got that's an all Wales approach rather than just embedded within our health boards individually, etc. Next slide, please. Back to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the most important bit of this is that we submitted this development that we've been doing to the Learning and Work department. There are Inspire Awards, and we actually won in terms of the award for Inspiring Tutor of the Year, which we're really, really pleased with. So if you wouldn't mind, can you just click the play button? Hopefully it's still play. So this is Michaela's video, and it's only 2 minutes, Chris.
She's magic.
Thank you. So there's a little quote from Michaela at the end there in terms of we asked her what she thought. Next slide, please, Fee. So in terms of our inspiration and what we're doing in terms of the work-based learning team, what we're trying to do is to bring together all of those staff and be able to support them in taking forward the development of their own staff. Thank you.
Congratulations on winning. It's always good to win, but even bigger congratulations on the job of work being done. This sounds and feels like something really worthwhile doing. So well done to you and your team.
Thank you.
And you get 10 out of 10. You bang on time.
That's my cheats.
Diolch o galon. Diolch yn fawr. I'm not going to take any questions. I think independent members will want to reflect on this, and we can pick that up with Lisa and you later if necessary.
And we can share the slides.
Yeah, well done. Diolch o galon.
Thank you for making me trainer.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's a lovely way to start the morning. I'm going to now go into the draft minutes of the board meeting held on the 25th of January 2024. So can I go through for accuracy to start with? Page 1, page 2, page 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Are you happy that that's an accurate record of the meeting?
Yes.
Well done. Thank you very much. I'm now going to go to 1.6, which is the action log from the board meeting of the 25th of January. David, how are we doing?
All actions are completed, Chair.
So if we take that action log and go back into the minutes of that meeting, are there any matters arising not covered by the action log that members wish to raise? So page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. You happy for me to sign these minutes off? Yeah, well. So now we go on to agenda item 2.1, and I know you all wait for bated breath for this. So you've got my report. I'd just like to highlight a few things. In the first part of my report, I've tried to give a snapshot of the reality of the complex situation that health and social care, together with other public services, sits in at this moment in time. I'd also like to emphasise that whilst there are challenges, and these are some of the greatest challenges the NHS has faced since its conception, I want to point out the opportunities that are bound in there. Those opportunities are based on embracing new technologies, supporting people to be the best professionals they can, to give the best care they can, and their education and training. And all of those things are at the heart of the agenda for this organisation. There are some really uplifting things, and Jill, who is now our vice chair, and I'm very grateful for the work she's doing, you'll see a part of my report reflects some of Jill's activities. We both attended the STEM conference, which is Sharing Training Excellence in Multi-Professional Education. It's a really easy thing to say. But what I could encapsulate for you is there was a real energy in the room. There was an absolute privilege to sit amongst people who not only do the education and training, but those are people who are receiving the education and training. And I would sum it up as being an absolute hopeful thing. So that was great. And then yesterday, I visited the Genomics Park on the outskirts of Cardiff. And again, Wales in the front end doing incredible things, bringing partners together, and actually we're sitting really close to an agenda that will rely on us getting the people ready, trained and educated to actually adopt some of the technologies that will come ahead. So I think that for me, that was a really uplifting thing. We now come to just a brief thing about our board membership. We're all been congratulating Julie on becoming a chief exec. Well done, Julie. That's a success for us. We, of course, will miss you, but well done, you.
Thank you, Chairman.
I just want to say just one thing about it. We've got a new board member, Dawn, today. We'll have another one join us in July. Boards like this to flourish, change is an absolute certainty. So the focus on sustainability and planning for the future is something that has been in our minds for some time, and I think we should have confidence in the way we go forwards. It was this time in January that we said goodbye to Ruth and Tina as board members, and I'm pleased to see how Donna and Jane have taken over chairmanship of the subcommittee of the committees, and of course Jill as our new vice chair. Just one other thing I want to point out is just the corporate parenting charter, and a plea from my heart. This feels something really important to be involved in, but I don't think we just want to sign a charter. I think we need to know what the commitment is from us. So I know, Alex, you'll be picking that up. I want you to note the Vice Chair's report. I chaired the stakeholder reference group on the 15th of February. It was a really well-attended meeting, it always is, and I would like to pay tribute to our partners. We had a chief exec's update, and as part of that we had an update on the education and training plan. And you will know that our educational training plan was signed off by the Minister in January. There were some concerns raised by colleagues from other organisations about communication and the process, and we have Alex and I will be meeting senior members of the Welsh Government to talk about how we can improve the process going forwards. I had to take a number of Chair's actions, and I'm going to ask you, please. I'm going to go through them now. I want you to note the report for my report for information. I'm going to ask you to ratify Chair's Action 1 undertaken on the 3rd of March to approve the pay award for executive salaries as outlined in the Welsh Government Circular. This is really good. ESPW 012024 for this financial year, backdated to the 1st of April 2023. Can I ask you to approve, please?
Yeah.
Ratify. I'm asking you to ratify Chair's Action 2 undertaken on the 18th of March to approve increasing total contract call-off value for the Calder contract from 200,000 to 300,000 in accordance with the change control notice. Can I have your approval, please?
Yes.
I'm asking you to ratify the Chair's Action 3 undertaken on 18th of March to approve an invoice from NHS England for £443,965.29. Can I have your approval, please?
Yes.
I'm asking you to approve the appointment of Jill as Vice Chair of the Education Commissioning and Quality Committee from the 28th of March. I'm asking you to approve the appointment of Dawn Jones as a member of the same committee from the 28th of March. Thank you. And I'm asking you to note that John Gammon will stand down from the ECQC from the 28th of March 2024. Thank you very much. I'll finish my report there. I just want to draw your attention at the beginning of this meeting to agenda item 4.9, which is our corporate risk register. And at the end of the meeting, when we come to 4.9, I'd ask that you've considered and reflected if the corporate risk register reflects how we feel we are. Thank you very much. Happy to take any questions, but happy not to have any questions, Jane.
I think on the cover sheet it says that we also asked to approve the appointment of myself as chair
Oh,
of the
missed
Audit
it.
and Assurance Committee.
Yes, can we ask, can I ask that members approve the appointment of Jane as chair of the Audit and Assurance Committee from the 1st of February, a retrospective. Thank you, Jane, well spotted. Chair of Audit. Thank you so much. Am I off the hook now? Yes, thank you so much. I'd like now to move on to the Chief Exec's report, agenda item 2.2.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully what's in the report is self-explanatory, so we'll go through it all, but I'm happy to take questions on any of those items. I suppose, one of the things that happens at this time of the year is, as is reflected in the agenda of the board today, it gets really busy sort of tying up all the loose ends from one year and really thinking about how we get into the next year. So I know that the agenda is really packed today. But some of those items there, hopefully the board is very familiar with and has been part of the development process. So apologies for the volume, but unfortunately, a lot of it is dictated by Welsh Government on the IMTP and what we have to produce and submit. And I think that the plans are a key part of the agenda. So also thanks to Glyn and Sophie and the team for all of their work in really supporting that process as well, because those are absolutely vital to how we function as an organisation. And we'll get onto those in due course. So just to update on some of the changes to the executive team. So obviously, as the chairman has already said, and it's Bill my thunder, congratulations to Julie. And we're really, really pleased for her and her new role. And we'll obviously be really sad to see Julie leave the organisation after 6 years of being with us in setting up the organisation and helping us get to where we are today. But there will be more opportunities to say goodbye to Julie in subsequent meetings. But just as importantly, really, we are obviously needing to fill Julie's big boots, and we are at advert at the moment. So we are hopeful that by the end of April, we will have identified a successor for Julie. Also, hot off the press today, and we are going to be announcing this to the organisation in parallel with this board meeting probably, that actually we have been able to make a successful appointment to the Director of Education, Strategy and Transformation. And we are really pleased to announce that Ian Matheson, who is the Associate Dean of Partnerships and Business Development at the University of South Wales, will be joining us to fill that new and exciting role that we have as part of our executive team. So we're just going through the details of all of that at the moment. We hope that he might be joining us midway through the summer. So I think those are the only things that I wanted to really draw attention to, but I'm happy to take any questions on anything that's in that report.
Thanks, Alex. Any questions for Alex? Any comments? Okay, well done. Very much.
Thank you.
Going on now to strategic matters, agenda item 3.1, approval of the integrated medium-term plan 2024-27. Who's leading on this, please?
It is me. Yeah, Canary. Thank you, Chair. And actually, I think it's a real pleasure to be able to present this paper, a 3-year plan to the board. The process that we've gone through feels like it's been quite comprehensive, and we've involved a number of people internally within the organisation as well as external stakeholders in identifying the priorities that you see in the IMTP. We've broadly maintained those 3 strategic aims, which are around developing our future workforce, developing the current workforce, and obviously shaping leadership and culture. So within those 3 strategic aims, we have looked at and refocused some of the priorities within there. There are also some things that you'll see in the cover report where we've moved things effectively to business as usual. So they will still continue, but they're not identified necessarily as transformational priorities within the IMTP. Part of the engagement that we've gone through has been to meet with house boards and trusts individually to understand what their priorities are, particularly in regard to education and training and workforce development, but also presentations to the stakeholder reference group as well. So we've had some really good feedback, I think, part of what has been quite a long process, but a really important process to try and draw together and get hopefully what is a really good balance of priorities within the 3-year plan. Just a couple of other things I'd like to draw out, and then happy to open it up for questions and comments. Really important, as well as the priorities that we've identified, are what we call those enabling or supporting plans, which will, be key to making delivery of the IMTP actually happen. So again, we've section in the IMTP that sets out those plans, and I think it's important not to underestimate some of the risks to delivery around those enabling functions delivering as well. Quality is clearly central to all of our priorities, and again, you'll see reference on how we look to apply the steep standards to everything that we do, and again across all of our enabling functions as well as the individual priorities. Just touching on some of the financial assumptions, I think we've used this opportunity this year to look at all of those priorities, and there has been a level of prioritisation exercise that's been taken as part of coming to this final IMTP. And in doing that, what we've also looked at is, I think, what is a sensible increase in our financial risk around the level of resources that we've committed to be able to deliver all of those priorities, knowing that there should be some financial flexibility, particularly around the education training plan, that allows us to commit some of that resource ahead of the year. It does effectively translate into a financial risk as we go through the year, but again, I think it's one that we consider to be a reasonable level and is in line with our sort of board appetite for financial risk as well. But important just to draw the board's attention to that. You will also see that as part of the IMTP, and it comes up again in terms of the education training plan, that there are some Welsh Government policy changes that also potentially impact some possibly next year, but also potentially over the 3-year period around increasing tuition fee cap, but also the change around students being able to access a bursary and maintenance loan as well. So these all potentially present financial risks that we will need to work with Welsh Government on as we deliver our priorities and we deliver the education and training plan as part of that. I'm conscious there's a lot of detail in here, and I'm aware that we've had some board development sessions, so I wasn't planning to sort of go through in any more detail, but really happy to take any questions and comments before we move to the recommendation of hopefully approving this for submission to Welsh Government.
It is a magnum opus, that is for sure. Can I open it up for questions or comments?
It is, and like I said, it's a very comprehensive document. I think the team should be congratulated on putting this together, and all the work that's gone into it and behind it. And as you said, Glenn, we've had the opportunity to discuss this or to have iterations and see it. I suppose for me, I'm definitely a half-glass empty type person, but it's noting within the document the number of areas where it says in the sort of enabling section, particularly the financial risk if there is underinvestment, that some of these actions may not be able to be completed. And I think some of that, particularly for me, one around primary care. Given where we're at, so we just need to hold on to that. We've got lots of opportunities, and I know we've talked about our risk appetite and everything I want to do. But there's just
it's just sobering that there are a number of such key issues which we may need to reflect on.
And there is a refresh of a healthier Wales
Yeah.
happening. The international evidence base is to shift to community-based and primary care-based and a more preventative-based NHS. And, you know, I think we're in that grain together with the financial stretch that the NHS is facing across the world, really.
Yeah.
So it just needs to be open and transparent. Any other comments? John?
Chair, thank you. So I think first of all, we should recognise as a board the amount of work that's gone into this and thank all the teams that have worked on it. We've seen the document on a number of occasions, and I'm pleased to see that some of my comments have been reflected in the document, so that's appreciated. The key thing now, I guess, for us as a board is the delivery and how we monitor the delivery of the IMTP if it is approved and accepted by Welsh Government. I did read, particularly in the enabling section, 24-25 is going to be a refocusing, I think the word was, on research. So I would emphasise that within a lot of the documents that we've got today, there seems to be a need for us to consider that in a little bit more detail, and particularly around the softer element, perhaps, which is that improvement component. So that would be my challenge, I guess. It's noted, but I would say we just need to focus on that. And the other point, Jerry, if I may, what I'm pleased to see is that this document, with our duty of quality document that's later on in the agenda, that most of our papers are referenced as to how they will achieve either elements within the IMTP or will achieve elements within the duty and responsibility of quality. And I think that's very good practice, and every paper has got that. So that gives us a certain degree of assurance. After reading all the papers, I just felt that we are at risk of losing the amount of work that's taking place and how they all fit into those two key documents. And I'm just wondering whether, whilst we've got the end of each paper, is it achieving aim 1, aim 2, aim 3, that we almost have some, what I am in my mind would be like a policy map. So we map out quite clearly how each of our workforce delivery plans, as Chief Executive referred to the importance of impact. So we could, as a board, note exactly how each of these in some sort of map of policy with regards to all the workforce plans, with regards to a range of documents, the career one today. Well, yes, we know what it's doing, but how is it overall? Are we getting that? So that's just a thought, how we can enhance the good practice that we've already got, that we then get assurance that we're on track in delivering these aims within the IMTP, and we're monitoring the delivery and where it's going to be delivered. Chair.
Important points about value and impact, demonstrating it. Any other comments? Want to come back in there, Alex?
No, I think that's absolutely fine. Something to definitely look at.
Okay. I want to comment about this hasn't just come out of the ether. This has taken a lot of hard work, but I want to say that I can see how board members have been engaged throughout this. I think John's comment about recognising some of the discussions we've had, I'd encourage that going forward, not just on developing the next one, but actually, as John indicated about how, and Donna, how we're doing and where the knobbly bits are. So thank you for that. And with that, if everybody's had their say, I'm going to ask that We approve the IMTP, including the deliverables, templates and the minimum data set for submission to Welsh Government. Can I ask your approval? Thank you. And approve the equality impact assessment. Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much. Now, have you got so well? I mean, well done, everybody. I mean, you know, this is a huge thing to do. And if you add the education training plan on top, it is an extraordinary amount of work. So, I you know, really well done. So, agenda item 3.2 is the finance resource plan.
Thank you, Jen.
A really interesting read.
Thank you. So this plan sits alongside and is part, well, is an integral part of the IMTP that we've just discussed. So and again, from a board governance point of view, it's really important that prior to starting next financial year, we're able to set a financially balanced plan. As I mentioned before, we are able to do that, but obviously we do that with a level of risk in actually delivering it, given some of the priorities that we've committed to take forward. So this paper sets out essentially our approach to taking that very high level financial plan in the IMTP to actually setting the detailed budgets. And that detailed budget setting paper will come back in May for approval. But really this paper just highlights our approach to how we're going to do that. As the chair mentioned before, the education training plan for this sort of academic year was approved by the minister. That represents the largest part of our financial plan and budget as an organisation, and therefore we use that the commissioning assumptions within that plan to set most of our budget. We do obviously also have other budgets around employing staff within HIW and taking forward some of the other priorities that sit outside the education training plan, but are actually part of our IMTP, so particularly around areas like leadership development, for instance. And again, the paper just sets out how we will look to set those budgets so that people have got the right resources to take forward each of those priorities. Within the paper, you've got some of those financial risks, again, that I mentioned, and again, some of those particularly around Welsh Government policy changes, where we're assuming that if some of those materialise, there would be a discussion with Welsh Government about extra financial support to implement those policy changes. But they are policy changes that we should be welcoming in terms of encouraging people to take up more education and training. So again, there's nothing more that I really wanted to add other than that, but happy to open it up for comments and questions before seeking approval.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Glenn. Jim?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Glenn. Very clear paper. Very easy to read, and I did enjoy it. Just a couple of comments. You touched on leadership, and it was one of the things that I found quite difficult, I think, to pull out. And when we come on to looking at impact, value, and all the rest of it, it's going to be quite important that we identify that. So pleased to hear that that's in train. I would have found it useful, maybe something for the future, as we get into this, or we're in this difficult financial arena. It'd be quite useful to have the comparators from last year in the table, just to show where we're going on some of these things in terms of trend. And I guess the question I've asked previously, will the trend analysis for overspends and underspends be taken into account now in this year's budget, so we don't have the sort of same result for some of those budgets?
Yeah, so I think happy to do the comparison. That's helpful, and people can see how that's moved between the 1 year and the next, and hopefully people will be able to identify where we've refocused some of our resources around some of those priorities. Yes, in terms of the approach, the idea is that we look at patterns of spend and what we believe people need to spend in certain areas rather than what the historic budget has been. So I think previously we've talked about some of the training grade salaries and there being a sort of a legacy underspend, if you like, and similarly on supporting some of the relocation expenses where we've seen that increase, that we should probably resource that differently. So that this is an opportunity to do that and bring that budget setting paper back to the board in May. You'll have a chance to consider that in those.
Any comments or questions? It is a really useful thing to read it in straight away after reading the IMTP. This is the grit. This is the grit in the oyster and proving the value of the Welsh public purse. I also think there's a great deal of good in our education training plan and this IMTP in terms of what it means for the people in Wales and for our educational institutions. So I think, Glyn, I'd say that I look forward to seeing how we can summit the value of what we're doing. I think that is going to be a very important agenda going forward, as well as the cost and the way we're managing it effectively. So I'm asking the board to approve the approach to establishing the 24-25 resource plan.
Yeah.
I'm asking you to note the financial framework as in the IMTP, which is the basis for setting the resource plan. Yeah. I'm asking you to note the changes to the revenue resource limit. And I'm asking you to note to consider the key risks identified. Well, the risks are going to be live and we're going to be keeping an eye on them, but they are real. And it feels as if we've been on a journey from that very first 1 year plan to dipping our toes as a new organisation in our first IMTP. This is a much different place and feels much more like the rest of our partners in the NHS. So thank you very much, everybody. I'm now going to, we got Angie. Hiya. We're going to go to the strategic framework for, I was going to say carers, careers.
Thank you.
Angie.
Thank you. So thanks, colleagues, for inviting me to present this. I know this will be familiar to all of you because we've brought this to various forums before. So this is coming today to seek approval of the final document. So you will remember this is part of our IMTP for last year. It's part of our Building Our Future Workforce aim. And originally we have been working to produce a strategy, but through engagement and particularly remember the BDS session and stakeholder reference groups back in October, we settled on actually this is an attraction strategic framework which describes how we set standards for NHS careers, how we sort of push that side of the agenda, but more importantly, or as importantly, how we work with partners who also have a lot of input and skin in the game, basically, from their perspective. So how we connect all of that together. So the strategic framework, you will have read it, it comes out with 4 overarching themes and we will hang our actions onto those themes. So it's around, providing the resources and the platforms to deliver those resources, looking at what good work experience looks like and to try and sort of reinvigorate work experience, which with COVID has quite significantly dropped off, but what can we do to help that? Trying to recruit some ambassadors and mentors as well, so people can connect with people who are actually working in the service. And obviously we will always keep in mind the technological and the sort of simulated experience approaches as well. So those are the 4 themes. And towards the end of the document, where we talk about the duty of quality and what will be different to sort of set against that backdrop, and drawing attention to the core indicators that we will put on to the work that we do. So the sorts of core indicators are are indicated there, but really key user experience for feedback and specific sort of data hits, those sorts of measures, but that sort of qualitative and quantitative measures that would be appropriate to the actual work that we will be progressing. And I think key to the work in all of that, the key measure for us will be that partner and stakeholder feedback, because that will tell us how it's landing, which is what it's all about. So I'm here today to seek approval so that we can go ahead and publish.
Thank you, Angie. And as you say, we've had the pleasure of seeing this come through in board development session. So are there any questions or comments from your colleagues? No?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Angie. It's really really good paper. Clearly, a lot of work's gone into it. I just had one question as I was going through it. Was the link up with social care, and whether there was an opportunity to do more in terms of some sort of joint approach, given the push for working together.
Yeah, so as our we have a health and social care careers network, which we lead, but it's a thriving network. So where we can, we do dovetail and do joint approaches. So the ground is fertile for that, and it's building on that work, definitely. So Andrew Bell, who's the lead in Social Care Wales, works very closely with my team. Okay, sure.
Thank you. Really good paper. And see how the careers in the NHS are probably being positively promoted. Just one point of detail, really. One of the things you're trying to do is encourage people to be ambassadors and mentors. And then looking at the core indicators, we can't quite see where that fits in the core indicators. Is it incorporated in one of the things there, or does it perhaps need to be pulled out as an additional one?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's part an additional one, because there will be the experience of those ambassadors and the experience of the people who engage with those ambassadors.
And the nurses of them.
Yeah. That's we can include that.
It's a very small point, but when I was reading this, having read some of the papers that came ahead of it, just wondering whether we could be proactive with our looked after children in relation to some specific work experience.
Yeah. Angie, we're going to sign up a charter for our corporate parenting. And when I read this paper, it just stunned me.
Yeah.
It's for one thing to educate them, but to educate them into something that gives them a huge life chance. Unless it's
in one of our other projects through the Widening Access Programme, we've actually got a project working with Park and Vale at the moment in that area.
Yeah,
as part of our Widening Access. So although it's not described to me, it is on the agenda.
so I really look forward to seeing what our pledge, meaningful pledge, could be, and its contribution. Marmot pointed out that education is the key to your life chances. It's directly linked to your life expectancy and your morbidity, the quality of your life. And these young people deserve. Okay, so Angie, thank you for the paper. I'm now asking the board to approve the strategic framework for NHS Wales careers for launch. Can I ask your approval? Thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you.
Agenda item 3.4. Duty of quality plan. Oh,
Okay, that's me.
oh, that's you.
Yeah, so the board, again, we've had a number of conversations over the course of the last 12 months on what the duty of quality means to us in HAW. And full confessional, I did start off thinking I needed to write a quality strategy, and I made a management decision halfway through the year that actually needs to probably be more of a plan. So that is what you've got.
That's unusual.
I thought as chief executive, maybe I was allowed to make that decision. But it just felt at this point, without having the new appointment into the assistant director role, that actually having something concrete to build into the IMDP for next year and what we might be doing around quality is probably most important. And having had lots of conversations with lots of people about this, so you can see the staff groups that we held, some of the conversations we had with trainees and students, and also our stakeholders, it felt that that was pointing in the direction of the deliverables you can see within the quality plan, some of which we're already working on. So we did take a report to the Education Committee on a specific project we're doing around quality of education and training to help improve quality, but also to improve assurance for the committee and therefore for the board. So there are things in train. We are also in the process of appointing the Assistant Director of Quality. The interviews are next Wednesday. So we are anticipating that by the end of Q1 we will have capacity in place to really drive this agenda forward and to put some clear milestones and leads on those actions that you see in the paper, which I know are lacking at the moment. And also by the end of Q1 we will have had to produce our first annual quality report. And that's obviously a requirement of the duty of quality. And that will be, I think, the next vehicle to come to the board to give you that sort of look back across the organisation on what we're already doing. And we're capturing that information and data through our end of year reviews that are currently underway, but also to give that look forward view and to just sharpen up on some of the milestones that need to be attached to those deliverables in the plan. The research element that John picked up on earlier on is part and parcel of this, really, because I think making those links in that sort of continuous improvement loop would be really, really important. So happy to take any questions and any suggestions of things that we might have missed, because of course this is our plan. We can add to it and change it. It's not going anywhere else. You don't have to submit it anywhere. So.
Okay. John?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for the sight of the plan. If I can just make some comments for consideration of this. If we look at the key elements of the duty of quality that applies to all NHS organisations, when I map those 6 against what we say in the plan, I'm left with the impression that number 3, monitoring improvement and sharing progress, is light. So I noted you've got it as an enabler, but under section 6, for example, we talk about enabling standards, quality management system, about a culture. I would have thought we would be emphasizing a little bit more there about impact, improvement, evaluation, etc. It is an enabler, in all fairness. We've got it further down where it says learning, improvement and research. You do say, but if you look at that, it's about learning. And I would have thought it's more about us evaluating the impact of what we're doing through this quality plan. In all fairness, you do say that the focus on research, improvement, methodology will be revisited. So I guess you placated me in part, but I think we need to be a little bit more cognizant of that monitoring bit, improvement and an evaluation culture. When we go back to the finance resource plan, there's a very small element within there that's around innovation and research. So we'll wait to see whether there is a trend that's increasing. But I think more and more as a board, we're going to be asked, well, what's the impact of what you're doing? And I think that element of monitoring improvement as one of the key elements, I think perhaps we could emphasize a little bit more, because we've got things that we can demonstrate that we're doing.
Any other questions or comments? For me, impact on Mrs. Jones and Daibar seems a long. We're very far back, but we're going to be in a situation where we're going to have to educate and train people to use new technologies, which will have massive impact. So we've maybe in the past difficult to join that, to shorten that journey from education and training and impact on patients. I think in the future, new adoption of new technologies will improve quality, to improve safety, to improve outcomes. we will be able to actually start to line some of that up. We'll never be doing it ourselves, but the people that we train will be in a position to do it. So I thought the paper, I think you're right, you've done a plan. We're stratified out of the strategic stratosphere. What we need is a plan, and it's a great thing to build on. And that's the other thing. Plan is a building, it's a scaffolding, and at least we got the scaffolding up. We're not waiting for the lorry to deliver it. So, you know, for me, getting the plan there, that's the right thing to have done. Are there any comments, questions from other colleagues or Jane?
I think just building on what John and the Vice Chairman has just said, you've got the scaffolding there. In some ways, we need to have systems for gathering what's happening to Mrs. Jones and Bwrdd. And it's not necessarily the stuff that we do directly, it's stuff that's happening out there in delivery boards, and using that evidence to see what we can do upstream to help prevent those things happening, to help people get to better outcomes at the bottom. I know when chairing quality and safety committees and delivery bodies, we're heavily reliant on things like datix reports and accumulating evidence from datix reports and coroners section 28, for instance. And maybe there's more that we could do in triangulating using those sorts of systems and evidences to help inform how we approach our plan of quality.
Yeah, no, I think yeah, we would totally support that, Jane. And I think the new role gives us that opportunity to have that clear point of contact, and that responsibility on behalf of the whole organisation to really assess what is happening, whether that be the quality statements that are coming out of Welsh Government, what is happening operationally in health boards and what's in their quality, you know, HIW reports from colleges, to really consider that not just across our education and training functions, which are really key, but also across our other functions and what needs to be added into leadership programmes, for example. So at the moment, we haven't got that systematic approach to the duty of quality. I think it's a real opportunity to think about this differently. And I think to help us now put in place the mechanisms that we need to do that proportionately, again, you know, reflecting on where the key risks are going to be. And to really link in with the quality infrastructure in health boards and trusts, not just through the education infrastructure. And for me, that's the real opportunity here. You know, what we do find is that we have to almost ask to be involved in some of the safety programmes. There still isn't always that obvious link being made with the workforce implications of some of our national safety approaches. So I've had another meeting last week with Improvement Cymru to see how we can work together more closely. Lisa and I have met with HIW to then see how we can work together more closely and really sort of support the implementation of this plan, really, because, as you say, what we want to be able to demonstrate over the next 12 months is that we've got a much bigger alignment and pivot towards those big things that are worrying our colleagues out in the NHS.
And to add to that, Gigi, I think you make a very good point in terms of learning lessons actually from incidents which are gathered actually nationally. So the risk of being guilty captures to a lot of the data coming in actually from the health boards and actually utilising that and actually influencing actually how education actually can improve and hopefully actually see a reduction in that level of risk actually and safety and improve safety actually for patients as well. And that's a big impact actually where it can really demonstrate actually that improvement as well.
I think bringing Mrs. Johnson-Bwrdd into this room,
yes,
is probably a very healthy thing for us to be doing. But it also gives us an amazing opportunity to celebrate the great stuff we're already doing and we don't tell anybody about in that quality and safety arena. It's not as if we're starting at base camp. There's a lot of activity and a lot of it is just not visible or tangible. It needs to be celebrated, and I think celebrating good things is the opposite side to getting a collection of what's wrong. We actually need to say what's right as well.
So Mrs. Jones and I get treated by many of the people that we're responsible for in education, and we have largely medicine, but also dental and pharmacy trainees out there delivering services. Our medical trainees go through a robust ARCP process and an accreditation process, which is being done in partnership with those education providers. So the fact that people are completing their training, which is quality assured by the GMC, does tell us that, and that's part of the evaluation, if you like, of what we're doing, and that's intrinsic in our processes. So that's happening as we speak. So I think we can take some assurance from the outcomes of training that we get. That's been delivered, Mr. Jones and I.
And just to add to that, actually, there's an addition actually to that, isn't it? Actually, as we actually sort of educate to our learners and they come out to those programs, it's made for them to maintain actually their confidence in being able to raise concerns, whatever it may be, because actually that's actually where we can learn, so that we value the fact that they raise concerns in order to improve patient safety.
And that links on, I thought this was a really helpful paper, and thank you for it's good. It was the bit there around the student and training voice, which is so critical and key. And I know there's a bit of a paper which suggests we need just to check out that we're getting that appropriately under this, because I think it links into everything you just said. Yeah, so it's really helpful paper.
Okay. Seems we've got a great place to start from. So I'm going to ask you, please, to approve the quality plan for 2025, noting the actions have been incorporated into the IMTP. Yeah. Note that a mid-year report will be provided to the board on progress. Yeah. And note the suggestions and reflections that have come from the discussion today, as part of the process of cultivating on the plan. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We're now going to go to the dental workforce plan. So who have we got?
So I'd like to welcome Lee Butler.
Hi, Lee.
Who's been working hard on this since we started a year ago. Lee is our Dental Workforce Transformation Programme Manager. The presentation attached to your documents, which is document 3B, which we're going to quickly, it's on the screen, which we're going to go through. Just a couple of things. If you go to the next slide, please. Just the purpose of today is to give us an update, emerging actions, and some key issues and risks for us, and for an approval of this draft plan. So it's a companion to the strategic workforce plan for primary care. You will have seen it back in October at a board development session. It's got many joint aims with primary care plan, but there are 6 specific dental aims. And one of our big issues is that we've got to concentrate on what is in our gift to deliver as HEIW. It's a whole very, very complex system of dental care that's out there at the moment. We move on to the next slide, please. So the current policy direction was back just before HIW came to being, and that was the oral and dental services response to a healthier Wales. There isn't a long-term plan to succeed this, and we think that what we're doing is going to be part and parcel of that. The aspirations at the moment out there in the system is to improve access. That makes long-term planning very challenging from a workforce perspective, although there are some things that we can do. Our current, relatively recently appointed Chief Dental Officer has got a number of goals that he set out. One is prevention. Another is contract reform, which is happening as we speak. Looking to expand the teams and having a multidisciplinary dental approach to dental care. Getting more data more evidence of what our workforce is and what drives them, and also improved population health and well-being. So that's all what is summarised on this slide. I'm going to pass over to Lee now, if that's okay.
Yeah.
To continue with the rest of the presentation.
Can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So it's important to remember that the dental workforce is not just dentists, it's made up of a variety of different specialties and areas. And workforce data is key, and this is value for us in helping to inform workforce modelling, and also then when it comes to planning and the educational training commissioning. The GDC has started looking at the data that they've got. There are limitations in this. So, for example, self-reported, it's only once a year, and only provides snapshots at that point in time. And there's also additional challenges as well, which we don't know where they are, what they're doing. So even if they are still working, we don't know. And so getting that data right is far-reaching benefits. The general dental service is particularly a challenge because these are independent contractors. So therefore the staff are employed by them and they never factor into the NHS workforce. NHS services have started launching the WNWRS data system that they have for the workforce, and that's recently been introduced into dental practices. So this is early days yet, and so hopefully we get an insight into the workforce when the initial data is released by them. Next slide, please. So flexibility is the key when it comes to the workforce. We can't rely on Wales as our only producer of dentists. We're a net importer, and we're relied upon our dental schools and national recruitment. There is only one dental school in Wales, and HAW doesn't commission the dental undergraduate places that rest with Welsh Government. We do commission the dental hygiene and dental therapy programs, and there are opportunities for these roles to expand as a contractual condition in the offer plans. And while hygienists and therapists are now open to able to open and close courses of treatment, there's not enough of an incentive to encourage them to come to the NHS. And the dental workforce is the future is probably not going to be the same as it currently is. There's significant opportunities for skill mix and developing the wider dental team to meet the needs of the Asian population. And programs such as the Grand Ambeth and the Design Smart are largely being carried out by the dental care professionals as well. Next slide, please. Getting the workforce right has far-reaching potential for both our workforce and for the population. Our plan is set up in the context of understanding what's driving and affecting demand and focus our supply based on extending our current knowledge for the future. Politically, demand is currently focused on access to services. However, we need to factor in moral health and population variation as well. And in the Asian population with more retaining the teeth, obviously increases comorbidities. And this will require a different workforce and evolving skill sets as well. Next slide, please. So there's also remaining issues as well and challenges. The workforce plan will not be able to fix all of these. Some are long-standing and beyond control of HAW, but we may be able to influence some of them. Next slide, please. Thanks. So the scope of the plan itself was discussed at length with many stakeholders, and it's determined we focus initially on the general dental services. But we're recognising that all the other sectors, whether primary, intermediate, and secondary care services, they are linked, and a full system of pensions almost often navigate through. And payment improvements made in one sector will have an impact upon the others. And we're currently working to expand the specialist dentist workforce in both community dental and hospital dental services. We've also created a technical and horizon scanning library, technical document in the horizon scanning library to support the plan. And both have extensive information in them, and they're going to be publicly available soon. Next slide, please. And on top of that, Vice Government also provided a circular to the local health boards, which had key workforce actions, for them to take forward to secure the community dental service workforce. And we're working again with the CDS in providing the provision of dental specialty and for training and to support the wider workforce as well. Next slide, please. So the next steps on this is we're looking to provide a soft launch with the alongside the strategic workforce plan for primary care, and we're also doing soft launches as well within national dental events. So, for example, we've got a rural conference on the 24th of May, and DCP advisory forums, and an always meeting in June as well this year. And also we recognise the financial climate and resources constraints along with the wider system challenges. But we have factored this and planned this into our future IMTP as well. Next slide, please. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to say anything else, Bwrdd?
No, I think it's the papers are there. I'm assuming people have read them, and
Yeah.
and there's a lot of it's a year's program that's been compressed because we were asked to catch up with the primary care workforce plan.
First of all, thank you for the explanation of the complexity. And eating the elephant in bite-sized chunks clearly is the way to go. And we can only do what we can do. And that may influence others. Are there any comments or questions from colleagues? John.
Chair, thank you for the paper. Can I focus on the digital element of it? So you note that within one of your table, and it's in section 3.3, which is about building a digitally ready workforce. I didn't get an idea from that, the extent to which we are in control of supporting a digitally ready workforce and the actions that are in place, because it says it's within the primary care document, and how much of this rests with the HCW in terms of developing.
So, are you talking about the general dental services?
Well, if we go,
digital, are you talking about digital advances in dental?
well, supporting the workforce, it says, to be ready. So what are we doing within our gift to support that workforce to be digitally ready? You know, there's some narrative there, and it says that key actions are within the primary care strategic workforce plan. So I'm not clear from that the extent to which we can manage it, or the extent to which it sits outside elsewhere, and what does that look like?
So I think it's as it says in the paper, it is part and parcel of we're companion to the primary care workforce plan, and there's a fair amount of work that we're going to do with DCHW in all aspects of primary care. As you say, it is complex, and for dental, we're trying to piggyback onto the advances that are happening in the primary care sector. Our primary care academy models, where we're trying to introduce innovation and new ideas, dental is part of that as well. So I think that it's going to be through that. Through the other means, not within this plan directly, it's going to be part and parcel of the wider primary care work. So I haven't got that in front of me to explain all the details.
I think John brings up an important question. This is an area, for instance, there's a great risk of increasing oral cancers being undetected. And I think the question for me is there anything specific for the dental workforce going forwards that we need to be doing to prepare them for specific digital innovations that will occur in the dental field? And
I think it's happening throughout all clinical services that those advances are happening, and they're finding their way into the clinical services as part of training, as part of the training of the workforce at undergraduate level. That's not in our remit. Making sure that people are up to speed in dental foundation if they choose. This is one of the problems. Not everybody has to do dental foundation. They do dental foundation. We can make sure that we have that role. But can't ensure it in all general dental services because people go straight there from qualification. So what's within our remit, we can do whatever is in our remit. We can't do everything for everything.
Yeah, thanks. So in the primary care workforce plan, there are 3 specific actions around building a digitally ready workforce, and those would encompass the dental needs as well. Some of those actions are about understanding the need and the education and training requirements, but they are working with the Chief Digital Officer and DHCW to develop a digital roadmap for primary care, so that would include dentistry, assessing implications on future workforce requirements, including ENT. So that's a really important one. And the second one is then rolling out the HIW digital competency tool. So the tool that we've developed about understanding people's competency, and then having champions roadshows and interaction to really understand how we can support better. And then also the third one is working with the HIW Digital Futures team. So we're improving access to immersive technologies, things like that. So I think they're quite comprehensive.
Yeah.
And they would encompass dental. But I think your point is well made about if you just look at the dental plan, you can't actually get a sense of those other actions.
Reference would be
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fine.
Thanks, Jane.
Slightly different points, and it's on the dental workforce slide, which is number 4. It's interesting to see the numbers, and I go to Saley around the fact that there isn't a single data set that you can draw from.
Yeah.
But for me, as an independent member, it would be really helpful to know what the UK population is, what the Welsh population is, and then proportionately
Yes, yes.
whether we are better off than
And
the rest of them or worse.
that's what we hope to achieve,
Great.
especially once we get the data from shared services with regards to WNWRS, because that will give us a better picture of the dental practices within it. But the downside or limitation to that is, I mean, if they're in NHS practice, so you still have a limitation as far as it doesn't show you the full picture, it's just part of that picture as well. And this is where the GDC are also, they're open to look to share information they have. Again, for example, they put some information right now about the members they've done staff survey on, and just over 49%, I think, completed the information on there. So there is a limitation as far as even from members responding or that data as well.
Because ideally, we should be able to get to a more granular
Exactly, yeah,
so that we could see
and
rural
I think that's almost like the whole
deprivation. Yeah, okay.
Jen, you're absolutely right. That's where we'd like to be. It's really difficult. The GDC doesn't have the same information that the GMC does about doctors. And with a doctor, if they're practicing, they have to do their appraisal every year and they have to be revalidated. With the GDC, they do have to do an annual CPD submission, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're practicing. So you can have addresses of people registered in Wales, and you have no idea if they're practicing if they don't have that data that the GMC does. So why even the GDC data that we've got is not giving us necessarily the correct information. We're hoping this new, which is mandatory as part of the new contract, to provide data from the GDS. That's why we think we're going to be in a better position now.
Thank you.
Jim?
Yeah, I'll be really quick, Chair, conscious that we've had a few questions. I find this quite overwhelming in terms of the changes that are needed. So I'm really heartened to hear the Chairman say about eating the elephant in bite-sized chunks, because there's a lot to do. It's difficult to see how it can change until the contract negotiations continue. But I just wanted to ask 2 quick questions. The logic, I understand that this is a piggyback on the primary care stuff, but I worry about people reading it in isolation and not getting the proper picture. So I just wanted to be assured, I guess, that there's some way of having a read across that people will understand that. And the second question, in terms of dental therapists, is completely understands we've gone through the logic at Bwrdd about training more. I guess it begs the question for me, are they affordable in the workplace in addition to the dentists when we eventually get to that place? And it was just a future question.
Some of those are questions we can't answer.
No.
So that's for individual GDSs to decide. If many of them would prefer to get a dentist because they've got other skills that they can supply. Depends on the practice configuration.
Don?
Yeah, sorry, conscious of time too, Chair, but I suppose it's there was a kind of is this enough sort of question for me, because it's a 5-year challenge. It takes a lot to train people, or not on that, but I was really struck by some of the workforce challenges that were in the document. And when you see that BDA saying that half of respondents indicated stress is exceeding their ability to cope, and almost a fifth admitted to experiencing suicidal feelings, it's like, are we doing it enough in terms of the workforce to try? And I know it's another one of those unanswerable questions, but I just, it struck me so.
But that's a question to ask the system.
Yeah.
That's a question to ask at all levels of the system. And then the question is, to what extent are we helping?
Yeah.
And what extent can we help?
And it also struck me that counter to that, that's another point in the document, there was a sort of a level of negativity about some of the potential change. So they seem to be most resistant to potential apprenticeships for certain of the professions. And it kind of like, it's probably that they can't see beyond because they're dealing with what they're having to deal with now. But it just, it really, this paper struck me very much. And
Quite sobering.
It's very sobering.
It's a reality.
Yeah, helpful conversation. I think, for me, in relation to Donna's question, I think as with most of our strategic workforce plans, this will help us do more, but it won't necessarily solve all the problems. And I think, we've always got to be looking at in that light that actually this is progress, but it's not necessarily, we can't take our foot off the pedal or our eye off the ultimate goal, which is that sort of how do we support that workforce more sustainably. But I think it will represent progress. I think the two plans need to be, and they are going to be launched together in May. We're having a primary care event that we will launch the two plans together, and we will need to make sure there's a hyperlink that means that whichever way you go into this, you can get access immediately to what sits in the other plans, so they can be seen as a duo rather than two separate plans. Because absolutely take on board the fact that today we're looking at this solution, it doesn't make as much sense. So I think if we were having it last month, or we discussed the primary care. The other thing I suppose just to reflect on is when we established HRW, we had a dental deanery that was focused on education and training. That was its only role. And through this process, we've been able to take advantage of the fact that we're an integrated strategic workforce body to actually develop a strategic workforce plan that includes education and training, but there's a lot more than education and training. And so from Kirsty's perspective as the dental dean, that's not necessarily core to her line of business. The deaneries are there for postgraduate education and training, and what we've been able to do because of the fact that we are HAW is to use the expertise and the resources we've got across the rest of the organisation to pull together this plan, which is about more than that. So I think that's a really important thing to recognise, in the same way as pharmacy have as well. When they came into HAW, they were just focused on education and training, and we've shared the responsibility with them of being responsible for the whole of the workforce development. And that's clearly why we were set up to do more than the sort of sum of the parts. Really. So.
Last comment.
And last comment, actually, to add to yours, Jill, about the team of dental nurses and dental therapists and the added value there. And we've got to remember that they don't all actually go just into that dental sort of practice as such. Dental nurses and dental therapists actually add so much to the public health agenda. Yeah. If you think of the younger age group as well, actually going into schools, they play a significant part. Yeah. And if we look at what we need from a public health perspective, that is fundamental.
Does every looked after child have access to a dental service? That's a question. Yeah. No. Just throw that in. Okay.
Yeah.
Lee, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You can see the interest that the board has taken. I'd like you to take our thanks, push only to the team. This is a hard area, right? We recognise that, but the impact of getting improvement could be huge. And we need to be good partners in finding the solution and the way forward. Education and training is our bag, but actually we need to be getting Mrs. Jones and Di back linked in through the quality plan to this. So I'm asking you please to receive the education and training plan, to note the progress to date in developing the draft plan and approve the draft plan. Yeah, and all the caveating that we've discussed. Okay, diolch o galon.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Well done. Agenda item 3.6, education and training plan, Lisa.
Okay, Miss Lisa, unfortunately, attended that, and Josie Glynn as well has contributed this. So what you will actually have here is the paper that we brought back to you, actually about the education and training plan for 2024-25. Members, if you will recall, actually that we submitted our plan to Welsh Government last July, and leading up to that submission of our plan, actually we engaged and actually with much engagement with our stakeholders in order for them to understand actually what that plan meant. And we actually explored actually a number of financial and service options as a result of that. And subsequently, a further request was made for a revised plan based on maintaining actually the investment at the 2023-24 budget level of 283 million. And of course, that actually required us actually as an organisation to revisit and undertake actually what we called a prioritisation exercise in order to revisit that plan and to produce an additional plan actually for Welsh Government. Members will actually recall we've been actually involved actually in the development of that actually with you and shared with you the progress that we've undertaken along the way. So this describes actually what happened. The revised plan, you will find it Appendix 1, so I wanted to go into detail on that. But actually it's about giving assurance and represents actually the information that we've had to gather and actually review as a result of producing that plan going forward. But I'm sure we're happy to take any questions as you'd like to have.
Board members who've been here over the last 12 months will know this has been a real acorn in the shoe. We put an alternative plan in, and quite rightly to match the stretch that is going on with public finances, and to make sure that we have proper value. There are some key lessons to be learned from the process and the communication from last year, and we've got to expect that things can be we can improve the things we can improve and encourage earlier decision making in terms of adopting the plan. And Alex and I have got a meeting with the government to lay that out. It's right it comes back here today. Are there any questions from board members?
Can I just add to that, just to reassure you in terms of that lessons learned, you're absolutely right in highlighting that. So we've actually revisited the lessons we've learned actually subsequently during the latest iteration actually of that plan, and you will see actually in that paper that we've actually reflected that and actually introduced that into the approach that we're going to take of 25-26 plan.
For me,
which is imminent.
For me, one of the key things about that education and training plan is that we built it having reflections from key partners and stakeholders, and therefore it reflected a sort of reality, and we need to make sure we keep valuing that relationship. It's one of the key building blocks that was not there before HEIW existed, and to allow partners to have a meaningful way of influencing where we go with this plan, and to get that message and its value of actually having that corporate view to go forwards. So that stakeholder reference group and all the work that goes around outside it through partners, that has huge value. It is very meaningful. So I'd like us to, you know, this is a one-off. I'd like us to change the trajectory of this going forward. It may not be in our gift, who knows? The NHS is under extreme financial stretch, but investing in education and training gets to one of the core reasons that we are facing an NHS crisis in workforce.
Patient safety.
And therefore the care we can give, both quality and quantum. So are there any questions? There, I'm asking you please to receive the revised education and training plan 24-25, and I'm asking you to note the high level timeline for 25-26 process. Shall we wish ourselves the best of luck in 25-26? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Agenda item 3.7, cancer workforce priorities. Is Dorothy here? Emma? Yes.
As if by magic, hi Dorothy. Yeah.
And you are?
Next.
Welcome, Dorothy.
Thank you.
We wait with bated breath,
Okay, thank
and
you.
I can assure you they are ready.
Excellent. Well, I won't go through it in detail and just maybe a few words of introduction. So I think this is the first time we've presented an update on cancer services to the board, and it's obviously a really important subject in NHS Wales, and I'm sure something that touches on us with us personally as well. Cancer services are under significant pressure at the moment, in part driven by workforce challenges, but also reflecting, I think, an underlying growth in demand. So estimated that the demand for cancer services is growing at between 8 to 10% a year. So even though we're treating more people than we perhaps historically have, we've got that demand growth as well. And that's obviously impacting on performance, on access challenges, and also in terms of the outcomes that we're able to deliver for patients. So there was a National Cancer Improvement Plan published last year, and that's included a range of actions for HEAW. And you can see within one of the appendices to the report, so Appendix 2, just sets out how we're doing against those actions. So it has been a priority for us in our IMTP for this year, and it will continue into next year as well. So there's a number of areas that we've taken action on this year around education and training. So we've launched Gateway C, which is a tool designed to really educate primary care professionals and to encourage sort of earlier diagnosis. Also recently launched the Endoscopy Academy, so obviously a really big important part of the lower GI pathway for cancer, which is one of the specialties where perhaps we're experiencing most significant challenges in being able to meet performance targets. And then for next year, we've got some really clear priorities, a big review of the cancer specialist nurse workforce. Obviously, specialist nurses are really key to both delivering an effective cancer pathway, but also in terms of supporting patients holistically with a wide skill set. So wanting to review both the size and shape of that workforce and make sure that we've got a career development framework in place and obviously an underpinning education framework as well. So that will be a really major priority for us, working with Macmillan and with the Cancer Network next year. And then there's some other actions around responding to a recent inquiry by the Senate committee looking at the impact of patients with gynecological cancers. And obviously some work that we want to do then around palliative and end-of-life care. And I appreciate that's broader than cancer, but just for completeness, just wanted to set that out here today. So one of the other big pieces of work we've done this year is to focus on some cancer pathway planning. So trying to embed workforce planning as part of the delivery of the national optimal cancer pathways. And you can see there's a report in your pack which just outlines the conclusion of that project and some very clear actions for us to take forward there alongside the Cancer Network and with health boards. So a whole range of actions to take forward in this important area, and something that I'm sure the board will be interested to keep an eye on through the INTP performance reporting going into next year. So the ask for today is that you note the programme of work that we've been taking forward, but obviously I'm happy to respond to any questions and comments from the board.
Thanks, Dorothy. So any questions or comments from board members?
So I think one of the things we keep coming back to is impact, and these are the areas where it's really joining that what we do with HAW with the NHS. And so this is our sort of, it's how we translate what we do into the NHS language, and those wicked service issues that are affecting patient care. So we had the diagnostics discussion at the last meeting. We've got cancer this time, and Dorothy's going to leave us with a paper on planned care the next board meeting as well. So those three things go together in our internal arrangements and also nationally. That's reflected in the national programme of work that I sit on with my colleagues. So it is really important. It is at the heart of ministerial priorities. It is another case of where do you start to eat the elephant. So there are, by definition, we're not doing everything. We're starting with some of the key things that are going through some of those workforce assessments, really. So this is the kind of stuff that we need to be keeping an eye on more, I think, as a board, and just really understanding how this impacts on some of those things our colleagues are really struggling with. But also just to note that this is Dorothy's last appearance at a board meeting, because she's also leaving us in May to retire. And you know, another great quality report that you know hopefully provides the board with a level of assurance about the work that is going on. And Dorothy has been a huge support to me personally over the last couple of years. Not the first time we've worked together, which is why I knew she would be a real asset for the organisation, and that's absolutely been the case. So yes, thank you, Dorothy, for everything you've done. You've really made an absolute difference to how HAW works.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure.
So you've had the pleasure of being involved in some really big plinth things. They take a long time from coagulating it all together to actually out there, but they wouldn't happen if we didn't do it. So on behalf of everybody, I'd like to thank you for what you've done. And you can look in the future to see the impact and say, oh yes, that's what we said. But it's not just about the people we train, it's what this is going to do with Mrs. Johnson died out and the quality of the care they'll get. So thank you. If there are no other questions, I think the paper was excellent. So what we're going to say is we note the work programme being taken forward in HAW to support the delivery of cancer services in Wales. And we look forward to the outcomes of it. Thank you ever so much, Dorothy.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Well, we've now reached the point where I believe that most people would appreciate a comfort break. So can I suggest, it's now just gone 1:05. Can I suggest that we restart at 1:20? Yeah? Diolch yn fawr.
actually next week.
We live? Croeso, don't know. Agenda item 4.1. The finance report.
Thank you. And it's the last working day of the financial year today.
Oh. Is that called the Ides of March?
Beware. Yes. So, with that in mind, we are very, very close to I think what we call trying to land the financial position for the year end of the jumbo jet on postage stamp. The paper that you've got in front of you sets out the position up to the end of February, and also our forecast surplus for the year end. Probably to note that there are some things that have changed as we've sort of come towards the end of the year. Some of the courses that we provide as part of that spring cohort, there are a few courses that have moved their start date from March to April, which impacts on the financial position. We, as part of sort of trying to manage the financial position within that sort of annual resource limit, we always try and identify all of these sort of key risks and opportunities. And again, we set those out in the appendix, but hopefully it gives you an idea of how we try and manage down the level of financial risk as we get closer to the end of the financial year. So you've got the forecast position around our revenue resource limit in the paper. We're also managing a bigger than usual capital program this year because of the currently calling it single platform business case, but there will very soon be a new name for it. We're also, as you can probably see around the building, refreshing our IT and technology as well. So the screens are part of that, as well as doing work around fire compliance in the so all of this is work that we've been doing towards the end of this year as part of that capital program. And again, forecast is to break even. And again, we're carefully trying to manage that around replacing some of our IT equipment that allows us to manage that from year to year as well. On the sector payment policy, at the moment we're on track to meet the target of paying all our non-NHS suppliers within 30 days of the 95% target. Again, this month is particularly busy as it tends to be when people issue invoices for work that's been done during the year, as well as knowing that we've got our capital program back-ended towards the end of the year. So again, a lot of the work, the invoices are all being paid this month as well. So it's a busy time when we will be looking to pay those invoices promptly so people get cash flow, but obviously mindful of things like counter fraud, bank mandate fraud that's going on out there. So again, the teams have been very diligent in making sure that we're paying people appropriately as well. So at the moment, I think it's probably a pleasing report to be able to present. We literally come towards the end of the financial year. So happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Right, Jane?
Just an observation on the public sector payment policy. It is something we picked up in audit committee and see that there has been a dip over the year in performance there, but I know, Glyn, you're going to be doing some work on how can we hit it this coming year.
Same point for me, Chair. I've just noticed that the last couple of months, and then particularly you just said this is a difficult month, that we weren't going to dip just below, because that would be quite disappointing because I know a lot of work went on, and particularly at the beginning of the year, we were well ahead.
Yeah. And I mean, what we find sometimes is very often there can be a number of invoices that we hold until we're happy that the value's right, that people have received the goods and services. sometimes that can affect performance. So whilst we will always want to try and make sure we meet that compliance target, I'm also mindful that we need to be confident that we're using taxpayers' money properly as well. It's a point well made.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you, Glyn. So the board's asked to note for assurance performance against the key financial targets. You note, please. The forecast revenue for surplus of 0.9 million in 23-24 and the risks and opportunities which may impact on the year-end financial position. And can I thank the financial teams for their diligence and work on this.
Thank you very much. I'll pass that on.
4.2 performance report. Glyn.
Thank you very much again. This performance report is based primarily around performance to the end of Q3 or the end of December, but where we've got more up-to-date information, we've used that and built that into the performance report as well. This is quite sort of all-encompassing in terms of looking across all of the areas that we have either priorities or we're delivering on, things like the National Workforce Implementation Plan, as well as our own internal performance as an organisation. So you'll see again just some of the headlines. Against the 51 deliverables, 44 of those are achieving as we planned them to, which means there are 7 that are currently delayed. But again, we believe that those should be achieved by the end of the year. There's also a section there around obviously education, training, commissioning, and I know that some of the performance issues are discussed in ECQC in more detail. But again, just drawing the board's attention to some of those areas where either organisations or services have been escalated due to performance issues. We then cover off in the performance report some of the internal performance indicators as well. So there's a range of those indicators. And I just wanted to draw the board's attention to the fact that when we produced the performance framework last year and during the year, we looked at some key performance business questions. And again, we've had a look at those, particularly as part of producing the IMTP, but we believe that those 4 key business questions are still relevant in the way that we measure performance going forwards. And then really just for information, we've also included the NHS performance framework so that the board can have a look at the performance indicators that will be looked at from an NHS Wales and Welsh Government perspective. There are some that we will probably still continue to measure locally because we think they're important as well. So things like statutory mandatory training. So again, I'll pause there and just open it up for questions or comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments, John?
Yeah, just a comment, I think. The nature of the metrics that we're monitoring and how they're presented in terms of information to board has significantly improved. It is so helpful to see. We can go into the detail if we so wish in the appendix. All the narrative is there. It's helpful to read some of those. I know this time that we also are able to track some of the metrics. So we get Q2, Q3, so we can have the RAG rated. And I just want to thank the teams. It is incredibly helpful, the document, compared to what a position we were perhaps in a year or so ago. I've got no questions at all. I just wanted to make that comment because I've certainly expressed some concerns in the past. I do find it a very helpful document with board assurance. High level, if we so wish, or the detail equally, if we want to spend time going through it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Just to echo John's points, I found this incredibly useful, and it's a really good iteration where we were. So really easy to read, and they're not easy to present these things. So that's quite an art. And so thanks to all the work that's gone into that. I just wanted to ask one quick detailed question, which was about my favourite, the statutory mandatory training, and kind of what we might do, and does it give us any increased risk as an organisation? Pick out the chairman's points about looking at whether it's an increased risk.
The statutory and mandatory training compliance is 88.5%, which is above the target of 85%. So that's a good news story this time around, this quarter. We are looking at some national work with partners across NHS Wales to look at how much time is spent on statutory and mandatory training. You probably remember that one of the elements of the non-pay deal for agenda for change unions was a consideration of protected CPD time for all staff under agenda for change. So we are exploring whether there's a potential to actually review the list of particularly mandated training to see if that's still relevant or appropriate on an all Wales basis, and perhaps recycle some of the time to support the CPD commitments. But that's very early days, but we have had provisional discussions with that, and I think that's a piece of work that we'll be involved in nationally. So yes, I think that's quite good. Sorry.
Just picking up on statutory mandatory training as well. I'm up to 96%, so doing well. But that was at the cost of spending almost all of Monday morning doing the information governance piece, which actually has 3 sections: records management, IG, and cyber. And it must be said, I've done a lot of training in my time, but I think it really needs a look at in terms of content. It assumes that everyone is at zero knowledge. There's no pre-questionnaire to establish existing knowledge and then guidance into the bits you actually need to know. It's complete sheep dip. That was close. Sheep dip.
Good microphone.
And I could see why, as a, if I were a busy medic or a busy nurse, spending half a day doing that is excessive and not really appropriate in what's needed. So I just wanted to share my suffering and see if there's anything that we can do to influence the content and actually the educational approach that is taken to the mandatory training.
Serious point, Jane, but we feel your pain.
Yes, I've got to do manual handling next.
So
Yeah, so in response to Jill's comment earlier on, obviously there appears to be a discrepancy between the main report, which is saying below 80%, and the dashboard on 88.5. Sophie Fuller, who's been listening, is clarifying that for us, so I will update the board once I get that through. In response to yours, we don't have a formal remit in relation to the statutory and mandatory training content. That sits on Learning of Wales, which is hosted by Shared Services. However, increasingly, I think we're going to be in that area, particularly around things like the amount of time that staff are spending doing that training. But it is long overdue. A look at it. I think it was 2013 when the list was last reviewed, and since then people have just added things onto it. So yeah.
Okay.
And that would be helpful actually to everybody, because actually we actually receive the information from our professional groups to how much actually mandatory training they have to do, and that one is excessive in my experience.
So just go back to Jill's comment about is a risk. I think regardless of what the figure is, I think we would say it's almost definitely not a risk in terms of we're not achieving the target because of the reasons that James just indicated. Really, I think it's probably more of a risk. People spend all that time really training that they don't need to do. So I don't think that's something that we need to be overly concerned about.
Okay. As long as there's due diligence in the process of sifting out what goes and what stays and what should go in. It's actually what should be there to meet the expectations and the needs for the future. Glyn, I have two questions. Of the deliverables, to what extent are they in our own gift? So we've delivered for, you said that there were seven that we're going to get there. So of the seven, to what extent is it in our gift to deliver them? Or are we reliant on co-production with partners? And of the ones we've achieved, what percentage of those are co-deliverable and what percentage are within our own gift? Not for now.
Yeah.
I just think there's a story to be told. This organisation is here to help others look great. And we are reliant on working together with partners across the NHS and social care. So if any of those targets involve other component organisations, I think it would be helpful just to have an eye on that. And perhaps that could lead to a route for more meaningful discussions later on. I don't know.
Not much we do that's not reliant on working with other people in all
Yeah. So I'm saying to you, there's something to celebrate in this, right? When you're reliant on others and you're getting stuff done, that is a really positive message.
So I can confirm to the board that the figure in the dashboard is correct. We are at 88.5%. Apologies for the typo in the cover paper.
Okay. Have a think about that one.
Yes.
Okay.
We can probably include some of that in future reporting too.
So you've got colleagues who've joined us who've been part of creating this. I think for their sake, we ought to say really well done.
Yes.
You've heard the comments from the board members, and it's unusual to find praise in a performance report.
Yeah.
Right. So it's clear that we've been on a journey, as John has described, and we're in a better place, and we look forward to it improving even more going forward to meet the new needs. So I'm asking you to receive the report for assurance on HIW's performance and progress to date. I'm asking you to note the continued use of the key business questions and associated indicators as part of the performance framework, and note the NHS Wales Performance Framework 2024-25. Yes? Thank you very much, everybody. We now go to agenda item 4.3, EDI overview and update.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I start by saying thank you to my fabulous team for all their work in this area. I think, we've been bringing reports through to the board for a few years now when we were doing the basics. I think the last 12 months we've accelerated and we're starting to see some real impact in some of the initiatives that we've put in place. We continue to benefit from the staff-led Wellbeing and Inclusion Champions group who are helping to inform and shape our programme. So the paper's got a lot of detail in it. It's an update since the last 6 months. Obviously, we've also just published by the 31st of March or uploaded our annual equality report, which is a requirement of government and legislation. So this is a supplementary briefing, really. It's focused on the 3 objectives that we have in our strategic equality plan. First one's looking at the internal environment. So us as HIW, what are we doing here with our workforce, our work and the way that we operate? The second one is actually looking at our functions in relation to attraction, recruitment, and education and training. The third one is how we engage with our partners and community. So those are the 3 focuses that we agreed as a board last June, when we published our revised strategic equality plan. We've got significant progress in relation to our own workforce. Our diversity is now equivalent to the census. So obviously there's more to do, but that is quite a strong position for us to be in compared to where we were when we first set up. And you'll see in the paper quite a lot of examples of things that we've been doing with staff, including the Bring Your Whole Staff to Work Celebrating Cultures campaign, which has been really, really successful and will run into the new financial year. Objective 2 then, if you look at page 3 of the paper, that gives us some examples of how we're supporting the wider system. And I think, you know, our work on developing a really practical but detailed equality impact assessment template, which sounds a bit geeky, I suppose, but actually that performer is being rolled out and modelled across other parts of NHS Wales because people think it's a really great approach. And you've seen the paper there that we've shown that that's been adding value to some of our work. Also stuff in there about our education procurement contracts. Lots of training going on. There's things in here too about the exec director talent pool and the work that we're doing there. We've recently had a board meeting and we need to do a lot more in that area because our talent pipelines, which are fed by NHS partners, are not diverse enough. But the talent pool that we've created of 42 aspiring exec directors is actually diverse when you look at it across all of the professions taken together, but challenges in individual professions. So still more to do, but some really good examples of where we've been pushing on things. And then we've done a lot of work in the last year with colleagues, particularly in the Grange Pavilion. We've had careers fairs in the Cardiff Mosque. We've been working very closely with Muslim Youth iLeads programme, and we've had a partnership with a local college with some neurodiverse interns who came in on work experience. So these are all new things for us, and I think it's just really helped us to shape what we want to do and what we could do going forward. And I know colleagues mentioned earlier on the corporate parenting charter and our ambition to do some more work with looked after children or people with lived experience of care. So really ambitious, really proud and pleased to be able to bring the update here today, just through information. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Any comments or questions, John?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this has come on leaps and bounds. Really, really fabulous work. So thanks very much to the team. I've got a comment from Melton, who's observing today. Just a couple of suggestions. The Appendix 1 doesn't actually mention World Autism Awareness Day, which is from the 2nd of April this year till the 8th of April, so it might be a useful addition to the report. And the neurodiverse and awareness session in February 2025, it's actually on March the 18th. So it would be more effective perhaps if it was in March. This suggestion. Sorry, the neurodiverse and awareness for 2025, February 2025 would be more use in March because that's when it actually is. Let's take it out.
Yeah, it's
We'll pick that up offline.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? I really welcome this. Yeah. So, Julie, what are you most proud of in this?
Oh, it's really hard to say. It is really, really hard to say. I think probably just the way we've enabled staff to lead this agenda, in truth, and the fact that we're starting to see people from different backgrounds, cultures, and different abilities in the organisation. It feels like it's changing the dynamics.
I think it's attitude. There's a better attitude and a better acceptance, but something that's going to be a continuing thing that we will need to encourage and support, actively encourage and support. So I'm going to ask you please to receive the report and note the progress. Can you thank the team?
I will do.
Thank you very much. Now, Tech. Standards of behaviour framework, David.
Diolch yn fawr iawn cadeirydd. Felly, papur sydd yn gofyn ar cymeradwyaeth gan y bwrdd o'r fframwaith sylwau ymddygiad diwygiedig ydy hon yn unol am rheolau sefydlog. Gallai cadarnhau bod fframwaith wedi cael ei ystyried a'i cymeradwyo gan y Pwyllgor archwilio nôl ar y Bwrdd gan y Senedd. Allai tynnu sylw y bwrdd ysgol yna at diwygiad materiol i'r fframwaith. Sef y ffaith y byddwn ni bod ni'n awgrymu hyn ymlaen. Sydd yn ofynnol bod pob aelod o staff gyda gradd 8 ec neu uwch yn gorfod cwblhau'r datganiad diddordeb o leiaf o'r flwyddyn. Felly gan hynny, cyfnod i'r bwrdd ystyried y fframwaith diwygiedig a'i cymeradwyr ysgol yna.
Diolch Eryll, mae'n fframwaith hollol glir ac yn bwysig iawn. Are there any comments from board members? No? Very clear.
We had a good discussion at Audit Committee, Chair.
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm asking you please to, we've considered, I'm asking you to approve the amended standards of behaviour framework. Thank you very much. Board forward work programme.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Felly, papur i cymeradwyo ydy hon. Mae'n ofynnol bod y bwrdd yn cymeradwyo i flaen rhaglen yn flynyddol. Yn unol am hywysfydlog. Hoffwn pwysleisio mae fframwaith ydy'r ddogfen. Mae ddogfen fyw ac hyblyg a roedden nhw'n diweddaru'r y blaen rhaglen i allogi'r bwrdd i ymateb i ddatblygiadau iddynt godi. Felly gofyn i'r bwrdd os gwelwch yn dda i cymeradwyo'r blaen rhaglen ar gyfer y flwyddyn nesaf. Diolch.
Okay, so this reflects where we are now. There's lots of things going on. We may have to reflect those changes. However, I'm asking you to approve the board forward work programme at Appendix 1 and for the board development sessions at Appendix 2. But this is an entirely flexible thing which we will need to reflect on as we go forwards. Can I ask your approval?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. The key issue reports from the committees. Audit and Assurance Committee held on the 8th of February. Jane?
Thank you, Chair. I think that colleagues will have read this, so I'll only pull out two things. One is the limited assurance report that we had in relation to IR35 employment status checks. And the committee has asked for a follow-up audit on that. And secondly, ongoing issues around procurement and the procurement improvement programme. Still more work needed there to make sure that everyone knows what processes to follow.
Almost the same question then, Glenn. To what extent are these in Solgate, and to what extent are we reliant on others to support us?
So I think with procurement, that's almost entirely within our gift. It's an ongoing training and awareness issue.
Okay, right. So thank you. Any questions for Jane or comments? No, thank you, Jane. I'm asking now for Education Commission and Quality Committee held on the 14th of March. Donna.
Thank you. And same way, Jane, I'll assume that you've all read the report and I'll only pull out a couple of key things. Obviously, we've received assurance reports from medical, pharmacy, dentistry, nursing and health professional, and optometry. I think just in the nursing and health professional reports, I think it's worth just noting that the recruitment to the spring mental health nursing cohort was a challenge and an area of concern, and that there's going to be a focused review being taken with universities to understand that. So one of the key things. I think that the item which sort of brings all that together, which was really well received and should be noted here, was the project, the Quality Education and Training project that's been established, which will focus on aligning our education and training function with the duty of quality. So I think that's absolutely critical, and we all look forward to having sort of add that brought back to us and then onward. And then I think possibly, and I don't know whether Lisa wants to respond to this, just in terms of one of the tender for independent authorisation of blood transfusion, which we didn't receive any bids for. I don't know if there's any specific update that you were able to give at this point.
So we can say actually, but obviously we reviewed that and we have gone back to understand actually what the issues were, because we did actually have a current provider, albeit it wasn't currently commissioned by actually HAW. Those conversations have been very productive, very helpful, and therefore we are going out to retender that one.
And the time frame? Okay, well, any questions, comments? Okay, I'm asking you to note the content of the audit of the chair of the Audit and Assurance Committee. I'm asking you to note the Audit and Assurance Committee made one recommendation considered on today's agenda. This recommendation is around the amendment of so the B standards of behaviour framework, which we discussed a little earlier. And then in terms of the Education Committee, I'm asking you to note the content of the report from the Chair of the Education Commission and Quality Committee. Yes, thank you very much. All right, Bwrdd Gareth.
So dyma'r adroddiad sydd yn cadarnhau penderfyniadau a wnaed yn y cyfarfod caeedig o'r bwrdd yn ôl yn mis Ionawr, felly papur i'w nodi yn unigolion.
Okay, I'm asking you to note that paper. Thank you very much. And it's interesting, agenda item 4.8, which we touched on in terms of the IMTP and the education and training plan, our risk appetite and risk tolerance. David.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Felly papur yn gofyn cymeradwyaeth unwaith eto ydy hon. Mae'n adlewyrchu ffwyth gwaith y Pwyllgor a wnaed nôl yn mis Chwefror yn y cyfarfod o sesiwn datblygu. Mae'r ddogfen yn amlinellu agwedd y bwrdd tuag at parodrwydd i dderbyn risg ynghyd â goddef garwch o risg. Mae'n ffynnol yn bod ni'n adolygu'r ddogfen yn blynyddol. Felly, da ni'n gofyn sgwrs yn dda os wnaeth y bwrdd ystyried a cymeradwyo'r ddogfen.
This is one of these things that we will need to keep a weathered eye on in terms of our risk appetite. And compounding issues are the separation of the IMTP and the education and training plan. And of course, the extreme variable about how appetizing our education and training programs are for Generation Z and Generation Alpha very shortly. So are there any questions or comments people want to make about this? New board members, of course, will need to be involved in the discussions going forward about risk appetite. But, on the basis of the paper, I'm asking you to approve HAW's updated risk appetite and risk tolerance document Appendix 1, and it includes the amendments highlighted in the proposals section of this report in respect of use of resources. I ask you to approve, please.
Yes.
It seems such a long time ago, at the end of the chair's report, that I mentioned agenda item 4.9, which is our corporate risk register. So I'm asking you as board members to take a moment to relook at that register and actually, are there any comments you'd like to make as to whether or not this adequately reflects the position of the organisation at this moment in time? Are there any comments?
Really quick one.
No.
I wasn't quite sure about the mitigating actions against risk 3, and I just wondered if
what is risk 3, please?
It's if HEIW does not have sufficient capacity, this may have an impact on its ability to support the NHS delivery of annual plan commitments and levels of performance. But it was the reference to ESR and joint working that I just wasn't sure whether that mitigated it efficiently as this.
Yeah, so this is one of those risks that would be on here. add overnight to it, because I don't think we'll ever reach a level where we can guarantee that we've got enough capacity to meet our ambition. I think we're probably at an optimum size now in terms of our growth that we've had since we were established. But I think what I was trying to convey in the mitigation is that we are paying close attention to this, something that we do in a systematic way through our annual process of building our IMTP and looking at what capacity we've got in the organisation. But also in relation to ESR, we put in place a minimum viable product when we started. There's a lot of manager self-service functions that we didn't switch on. So we're going through a process of work now where we're actually turning those things on. We're going to be training with managers, and what that'll do is give us a lot of new tools around capturing people's CPD, the reasons why people are leaving, retention conversations, those sorts of things. So it's kind of about workforce efficiency in that space as well, and that will help us manage our capacity better. It won't change whether we've got enough capacity, so I can see where you're coming from, but it'll help us to get a handle on the capacity.
You also get that, yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry. Is perhaps something to add to that one though, I think, which is a conversation we've been having increasingly lately around having sufficient substantive capacity.
Yeah.
This thing we do over rely on absolute temporary short-term funding for some of our core programmes as well as some of the things that are task and finish. And so maybe if we just put that word into the risk, and then that would draw in a lot more actions around things we need to be doing to mitigate that.
Have you got an end plan?
No, there's going to have ones.
Right. So I'm sure I speak on behalf of all the independent members. It is to all our benefit to make sure we have the capacity and capability to sustain what we need to do. The IMTP clearly sets us up. The education training plan will add to that, and whatever the new cabinet secretary and the government may head our way, we'll need to make sure we're fit and proper. So I would suggest that we look forward to a cunning plan at some point. Okay. With that, then, I'd like to say thank you very much. Diolch o galon I pawb am heddiw. Thank you for the papers. Well, what else is there? Oh, you've got one.
Yeah, it's just a correction for the sake of governance. So there was a reference in the chair's report erroneously that reference to appointing Jane as chair of the Audit and Assurance Committee. Apologies, that shouldn't have been there. That decision was taken back in January. So just for a second. No, there's now a report.
We all saw it.
So apologies for that.
I thought I hadn't forgotten.
Yeah, it was done within time.
But deja, it's better to replicate than not to do.
Sure.
Yes. Okay. Can I thank everybody for their help and support today? We are now at 13:58, and I look forward to seeing you all again at the board development session on the 25th of April. And the next open board meeting will be held on the 30th of May. I wish you all a happy Easter period. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.